Social justice is societal vengeance. For a cult which wishes to will their wants and desires by forcing the public with the threats of struggle session, physical punishment, and public execution. The purpose of social justice is designed to shift the state and federal system of checks and balances directly to the whims and ignorance of the people, whom democratically can burn, loot, and murder within a district. Once accomplished, the violent mob can progressively vote to steal private property and decide to murder a family with ease because a centralized government has relinquished its power to the mob, wishes to put a difficult situation toward government officials who do not want to be deemed tyrannical. For the laws of nature, as justice, equity, modesty, mercy, and in the sum, doing to others as we would be done to of themselves, without the terror of some power to cause them to be observed, are contrary to our natural passions that carry us to partiality, pride, revenge, and the like. Thomas Hobbes. First of all, nature has endowed every species of living creature with the instinct of self-preservation, of avoiding what seems likely to cause injury to life or limb, and of procuring and providing everything needful for life, food, shelter, and the like. A common property of all creatures is also the reproductive instinct, the purpose of which is the propagation of the species, and also a certain amount of concern for their offspring. But the most marked difference between man and beast is this. The beast, just as far as it is moved by the senses and with very little perception of past or future, adapts itself to that alone which is present at the moment. While man, because he is endowed with reason, by which he comprehends the chain of consequences, perceives the causes of things, understands the relation of cause to effect, and of effect to cause, draws analogies and connects and associates the present and the future, easily surveys the course of his whole life, and makes the necessary preparations for its conduct. Marcus Tullius Cicero. However, we must be clear that man is more beast than man. For he that is without morality and ethics is a barbarian upon the gates of his own city. It is within the lodges that some fraternal orders conspire to remove an establishment, compelling a society thinking that the effort in removing one despotism is for the greater good is worth bloodshed, but soon realizes that the effort likens to the Jacobin Club under the motto Liberty, Equality, Fraternity, which this only gives death, for the pools form upon the rivers of blood. The cries of the suffering is instead heard from the moment the guillotine separates man from his freedom. It allows the libation of a disembodied carcass, while the cheering of bloodthirsty subjects who yell out, "Long live France, long live liberty," views the violence as justice. Revolutions are never finished or concluded by the people that start them. Nay, that the Jacobins would lose their zeal, and that Napoleon would end the revolution. Revolutions are merely geared in placing one tyrant in place of another. The solution of violence has not yet solved or compensated the ignorance of the public or the speculative naivete of the Masonic Lodge. The us versus them is the oldest forms of fraud that the establishment pushes when it comes to manufactured division. In the case of social justice, we must emphasize the recent obsession with racism. Children are not racist, and genuinely, children want to play with their friends who are of a different culture and of different ethnic groups. Kids don't care about skin color, but rather the idiotic notions of adults. The school system makes those kids. It is to say that the school system makes kids racist by telling them what racism is and who are the racial supremacists. This is not only dangerous, but this is the same evil that China and Germany did to circumvent a culture and producing struggle session, while confiscating property. When they have to make children's books about Marxism, racism, and producing social justice warriors, promoting the welfare state and protesting the government, you know exactly the type of evil that is being pushed. Some leftists may argue that it is for the greater good. How so? Do you think burning down cities is justice? The protesters really mean it with their social threat. No justice, no peace. These brainwashed men and women are as fanatical as the Bolsheviks and the Nazis. And the worst thing is that businesses will support it because they think the same people destroying their businesses will magically stop the moment they place a sticker in support of their cause. This is why democracy is pure evil. And this is why the communists use democracy as a dog whistle. Because if enough idiots get together, they can destroy themselves, while the fraudsters collect property and money, whilst the dumb minions receive nothing. In its philosophical core, without the lobbyists and Democrat Party's nonsensical propaganda, critical theory is 100% Nazism. Too bad all the commies aren't able to see it, as they are themselves parading around as Stalin commies, Antifa fighting Nazis. It is most humorous to watch people fight themselves over their own artifice. But far more funnier to see places like Washington, Seattle, and Portland, Oregon destroy their own cities because they don't understand history or the groups they belong to. The majority of the public are absent-minded. They don't understand that racism derived out of Germany, from Frankfurt, of which many German scholars fled Weimar once the socialists from the DAP, the NSDAP, took over. Many American students of the 1970s didn't understand what they were being taught. They assumed that if they held the hammer and sickle mantle, that they were fighting the National Socialists. And, like the Stalinist propaganda, Stalin considered any group socialist a fascist for political insult, because any other socialist group is competition, and Stalin, the dumb turd he was, could not countenance it. And no, National Socialism isn't fascism. National Socialism is a socialist German workers' party that relied on racism for national social cohesion. In fascist Italy, Jews were allowed to serve under Mussolini. Fascism was created by Giovanni Gentile. The communists only called any opposing socialist group fascist for political competitiveness. In Germany, many socialist factions fought each other for political power of the failed state of Germany at the time. They are creating the same exact conditions of what happened at Weimar, these social justice warriors, these members of the intellectual elite, and they haven't the slightest clue what they are getting into. Luckily, I can tell you what is happening, and governments are too lazy to avoid the conditions of another world war. Perhaps the banks and governments desire to have another war, but before they have a war, they, meaning the world leaders, desire that nations fail from within. The racism being pushed by this new generation are completely devoid of reason and are poorly educated from the school system, which did not teach them everything. Why teach the people everything in context, since these charlatans only desire power, political power, and which is the course of their reason. Social justice is indeed a fallacious notion. To be fair, people should not strive to be good people. They should instead to learn to limit themselves from vices and excesses. In other words, restrain themselves and be principled. The issue is that people are narcissists and selfish. Therefore, a good person cannot exist. Passionate people are rather moronic. They end up destroying themselves and others for the lie of their virtue. And we see this with the societal vengeance of what we consider to be the social justice warrior.